All right, welcome into the Hoist the Colors podcast on a Monday night. I believe we are live streaming. Yes, we are. We had, as I started it, it said there was a technical error. So I guess even the Twitter gods did not want us to talk ECU baseball tonight. But hey, we do have a win to discuss. East Carolina salvages the week, gets a win over Charlotte, loses the series. 1-3 week overall to snap the 6-game losing streak. I'm Stephen Igo, Jonathan Wagner, Scott Lohrbatcher. The most electric series you'll see in Major League Baseball will be this week. We'll talk about that. Those two teams are represented as visually on this podcast. The other one is not. That Wags usually likes to talk about. We'll start with ECU baseball, though. That's what the people are here for. By the way, AI, Elon, X. What are the buzzwords that we need? Tesla, Doge, and robots. That is robo-umps. We always throw out those buzzwords because those bump our numbers up. And, I'm curious to see what the pulse of the Pirate Nation is. The Pirates are 1-6 in their last 7, obviously struggling a little bit. So a lot to discuss, or not much to discuss. We'll decide. We'll start with the overall thoughts on the week. Jonathan Wagner, give us them.
Yeah, well, the vibes for the ECU Pirates might not be good, but my Nationals are losing 9-3 to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I just turned the game off in the 8th inning so I could not lag out of here while watching the Nats lose. But, yeah, I mean, overall thoughts, it's just kind of more of the same. It's frustration. It's what if to me is what I come out of this week with, and I think the team had a lot of opportunities to add on, and they didn't. I think pitching showed up. Pitching pitched pretty well throughout the week, but again, you were in some tight games that you probably should have won, and your offense just couldn't come through. So it's a familiar tone this week, and the postseason seems like a distant memory of even being in consideration now. So it's frustrating. It's a different feel. I think it's an adjustment for all of us here, all of us watching, all the fans, and the team too. Just, everyone kind of knows where this team is, and it feels different watching it, knowing that this time of the year we're not playing to lock up a regional host, and right now we're playing pretty much knowing that we have to win the conference tournament. So it's different, and that's just what I keep feeling. It feels weird pulling up ECU baseball games this year, and I still pull up every one, and I still do my scorebook for every game. I just finished doing it for the last game today, but it's weird, but it's just kind of more frustration, more the same, and yeah, I'll get into more specifics later. I've got a lot to say.
Yeah, a lot to get to. Scott, your thoughts on the week?
Yeah, I mean, it was just disappointing, and it's kind of what we talked about leading up to it is, this week was about playing for pride more than anything, I think, and the letdown really on Friday night more than any of the other games, I think was a tough pill to swallow. You're now 4-9 against teams from North Carolina. You can't have a winning record against the in-state teams this year because you only have 4 games left, and, I don't think we'll win all 4 of those anyway, so I think that's really frustrating is because that's who you compare yourself to, right? The other teams, the ACC teams that we play in the state, and then, the other, the Charlottes, the UNCWs. And we're kind of been on par with a lot of the ACC teams and above the other teams. And this year we look a step behind, and it's really frustrating to watch. It's frustrating to watch guys get hittable pitches in 2-0 counts and not swing and make errors. And, I think the bar has been raised over the last 10 years to a level where we expect to win these types of games, and just really getting smacked in the mouth this week sucks. And it's frustrating to happen as my chair keeps shrinking me down an inch every so often. It gets shorter and shorter. It's kind of the way ECU baseball feels right now. We just keep shrinking down smaller and smaller. But, yeah, I mean, the season starts in Clearwater at this point.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if you want to talk about the development route as we have often on the show. Like there's a chance that as Scott attempts to fix his chair, there's a chance that we're seeing the building blocks of something for the long haul. But like the reality is we don't know what this roster is going to look like with the transfer portal and NIL era. So we can speculate about that and talk about that, but we just don't know. And so we'll react more to the season right now. And then if we go through the offseason and all these key pieces are back, then I think that gives us reason. All right, last year they struggled. They had their growing pains. Next year we expect them to take a step. But if many of these key pieces leave, as Cameron says, program could go off the rails quick if we lose some of the key guys to the portal. Then you have issues. So for me, that's it's now I'm looking ahead to the offseason. I'm looking ahead to Clearwater. And I'm going to watch and cover these games, obviously, with intent, as always. I'm going to show up with intent to the ballpark. But, like the stakes right now aren't as high. Even Cliff Godwin said today's the first regional advisory committee call he's gotten on where the Pirates are not in regional contention. Like they probably won't even really be discussed. And that's a sobering reality. It does show how hard it is to be consistent, which I'll get into some of these comments here in a minute. ECU's been as consistent as any program in the country. And, the challenge is keeping that going forward, which is never easy. So as far as my overall thoughts on the week, guys, Pirates are what they are. They're a middling team right now until they prove otherwise. They lose to the good teams, mainly all the teams above them in RPI, and they beat the teams that are below them in RPI. That's kind of what we've seen for the most part. And we saw that again this week. Definitely was at that Friday game. Sick drop back, by the way, of the skyline, whatever word I'm looking for, backdrop. There you go. And but the game was like equally awful, the complete other way. It was the Pirates did not show up. So it is what it is, and we move forward. What did we learn this past week, Wags? What did you learn?
Yeah, I don't think it's something I necessarily learned this week, but to me, it really screamed at us this week. And to me, I think this team has a serious issue in approach when it gets to the plate. And, so often we talk about, getting up and having a good at bat and, working the count, drawing walks, getting on base however you can. And that's good. But to me, when you're struggling as an offense, as this team has all season, sometimes you just need to go up to the plate and hit. You need to think about hitting. And I think I texted you guys after the John Collins homer, first pitch homer. He went up to the plate looking to crush a ball, and he got the pitch, and he did it. And to me, I think this lineup only really has two guys that really go up there with the intention to swing the bat, and it's John Collins and Colby Wallace. And I think it's an issue that spans back even to some of the teams these ECU teams that have had such dominant offenses. We've always kind of wondered, like, man, could this offense be even better if they came up and they were able to just freely swing? And look, Cliff Godwin knows what he's doing. He's won a lot of baseball games here, but this is one of my biggest criticisms of him, and it has been for years. And to me, I think that sometimes we focus too much on getting that quality at bat added to the board in the dugout. And we go up there and you see a pitch coming in, they think it's a ball, they're shaking their head before the catcher catches it. And to me, if you're shaking your head before the catcher catches it, first of all, who cares? I don't care about all the, shaking your head when you think it's a ball, you don't want it, and tapping your chest all the time. Like, there's an extent to it, but when you're struggling so much, I think you need to go up there and you need to hit. You need to try to hit and be a hitter. And I think it's frustrating for me to watch because I just do think a lot of these guys are looking up there and they're not trying to hit. They're trying to draw a walk. And when it's your best hitters, I think, Dixon Williams, I love Dixon Williams, but he's one of the ones that stands out to me the most as he's always shaking his head when pitchers are coming in. And a lot of times with college umpires, if it's close, you might be shaking your head, but there's a 50-50 chance that it's going to be a strike. So to me, I just think we need to change our approach, and we need to go up there and let our hitters do what we recruited them to do, and hit the baseball. And I think that limits our offense when we don't do it. And when you're struggling so much, I think it completely eliminates any chance of you getting back on track.
So Wags learned that ECU needs to change its approach, right?
Yeah,
you had to get a ran in. So hey,
yeah, that was a lot less extreme than my rant from last week.
Yeah, man, what is going on with the burners taking over this chat? All right. Anyways, I'm just gonna ignore you guys unless y'all ask a good question. Scott, what did you learn this past week?
A week of negatives. I'll go positive. I think Sean Jenkins showed how good he can actually be. And I think maybe we learned that we kind of rushed him along a little bit by throwing him into the rotation to start the year. It seems like the games where he's come out of the pen and on the weekends he's been able to extend and give really good outings. That kind of shows how good he can be. And I think the pressure of having to be not just a weekend starter, but your Saturday guy, right? Like in theory, when Ethan Norby pitches well, Sean Jenkins is your guy that's going out there to win the series. And I think that maybe that the pressure of that Saturday is usually the best attended game, especially early in the year. And I think maybe that pressure got to him a little bit. And now you're seeing how he's developed and how he's come along and how good he can actually be. And that does bode well for Clearwater to have a second guy that's going to be able to give you extended innings. I think ECU needs to find a third. I think Brad Pruitt is starting to become that guy. And I do wonder if we had Pruitt start the year on Saturdays, then Jenkins on Sundays, and we just trusted them to go out there and go, 75 to 90 pitches early in the year and then 90 to 100 pitches later in the year and let them truly be starters and not have to worry about, do I have to pitch again on Tuesday, stuff like that. If it would have been better for their development than to kind of piecemeal the bullpen 22 style, I don't really like the way that we have not really defined roles as for our pitchers. And I think it's hurt us this year in a way that has not hurt us in years past.
Good thoughts. I don't know if I really learned a whole lot about the team. I was going to go the Sean Jenkins rotation is starting to kind of you can at least see a rotation that you can win the conference tournament with, which I think is a positive, assuming health, which again, Braxton Trammell got hurt this week, which was terrible. He's getting an MRI. It doesn't sound like anything's broken, but they're double checking all that and he'll miss some time regardless. I guess I learned that even if ECU does the two things that we kind of said they needed to do going into a lot of series, they can still lose. They walked only 7 Charlotte hitters and they made no errors during the weekend and still lost the series. So that surprised me. I thought if ECU played clean baseball from a free passes perspective, now they still had a pass ball on Friday that was very costly, which doesn't show up as an error. And they still didn't play great, but usually this team, when they play clean, is going to win. And that just kind of further shows that maybe this year they just don't have the horses to win these types of series. And again, they can still get better. They are a young team, but we're running out of time to get better with 5 weeks left in the regular season. So I just thought that was an interesting takeaway. Shout out Johnny Stats for hitting on that during our show earlier in the week. Man, this comment section is what I'm laughing at. Pretty good, I won't lie. All right, let's get into some of these questions. Brad says, agree with Wags' point. Cliff needs to do away with the number system at the plate. That's a whole other conversation, but I do feel like we are very much getting back to, which Cliff has always given a lot of signs, but it's now almost back to every pitch, which maybe with a young team, he feels that's necessary. Obviously, with an older guy, he doesn't necessarily give that many signs at times, but there was multiple times we've kind of seen them try to bunt with 2 outs, which I know leaves a lot of head scratching when it doesn't work. All right, Cameron says team will need a miracle AAC tournament run to salvage the season. The goal now has to be developing these young guys and most importantly retaining some of the key guys. So I touched on that earlier, but we'll get y'all's take too, Scott. Obviously, at this point, it's about development and figuring out how to win a conference tournament.
Yeah, and I think to do that, you have to have 3 guys that can give you starter innings over that week, especially with the way the format is. I would say going into that last series against USF, I'd hold somebody for Tuesday. Whoever I expected to start on Tuesday of the conference tournament, I would just not pitch that weekend. Probably Jay Connor, if I had to guess right now. And then you have to have your next 3 guys give you starters innings, because once you get past those first 3 weekend games, if you do get past them, then everybody's out of pitching. And then it becomes a very much an offensive tournament, especially at that ballpark where the ball kind of flies out all the time anyway. So I think the rest of the season is figuring out who can go out there and give you consistent 5 to 6, 7 innings of quality pitching and give you a chance to win, by either holding a team to 1 or 2 runs or just keeping you in the game if it gets to be an offensive game. So that's what I'm looking forward to. You got to find 2 more guys out of the bullpen that you trust, especially if Pruitt's going to be a guy that's going to have to start. And so what I would love to see is just more variety in who's coming out of the pen. I know we saw Lance Williams this weekend to get an inning. I think we need more of that. Maybe more Jackson DiLorenzo, more guys like that, just giving them opportunities to pitch meaningful baseball games in tight scenarios, because you're going to need them in Clearwater and you're going to need that tournament to make the NCAA tournament.
What about you, Eggs? What are you going to be watching this second half of the season when it comes to those 2 things?
Yeah, I think first of all, for the conference tournament, something I'm interested to see is, we've talked a lot about Ethan Norby this season, and I think the past few weeks he's been a little less sharp. I think he's tired a little bit, and we talked about it last week, but it's a lot going out there every Friday night for the first time as that guy and taking on that workload every week. So, but as we just mentioned, we have to win the conference tournament. That there's no doubt about that anymore. If you don't win the conference tournament, your season's over. So I'll be interested to see if they kind of maybe don't skip a start, but they start getting Norby out a little earlier, and just to kind of limit his innings a little bit so he is fresh at the time where you need him the most. And again, it's one of those things where we're having to completely recalibrate how we're, entering every weekend as a viewer and, watching this team. But it might be a thing if Norby's gone 70 pitches in 5 innings, and I know you want to win the game, and you're never going to coach not to win the game. I know that, we can talk about it all we want to, but I think if it comes down to it, and if Ethan Norby is pitching well, he's got 70 pitches after 5, and ECU's only up 2-0, he's probably going to keep going. But I think it's at least worth, discussing and worth thinking about, how can you limit him and make sure he's fresh. And it goes with other guys too. Ethan Young, he's thrown a lot. Brad Pruitt, he's thrown a lot now. So that's something I'm watching. But as far as, developing, retaining guys, I think – and you hate injuries, first of all, but I think you do have a core of young players that you're looking at and you want to build around. And whether or not those are going to be everyday guys in the future or just guys that you want in your team to play a role, you have a core of guys. And now I think, Braxton Trammell getting injured, he's one of those guys that you want, and you want him in your lineup next year. But now that he's injured, hopefully he can go back soon. But in the time that he doesn't, playing baseball where your back's against the wall, I'm interested to see how some of these other guys, step into that role. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. This weekend, Trammell started at third base for a game. Colby slid over to first. Austin Herbie got a day on the bench. And you got some guys in the outfield, but you look at someone like a Jack Herring. He stepped in, and he batted in a 2-hole in the last game of this weekend, and I think he had a really good weekend. So guys like Jack Herring, I know he's older, but, your guys like Alex Peltier, Drew Downs, Keenan Bowman, those kind of guys, if Trammell is forced to miss time, they're going to get more opportunities. So I want to see how they step up again when this team's back is against the wall. So every game means something. Even if you're not playing for a whole lot, every game still means something. So I'm interested to see how some of those younger guys especially step up and play for a job next year, if you will.
All right, some more comments here. A lot of good thoughts there. Lane says, man, the Phillies and ECU baseball are just letting me down. Luckily, I was at a wedding and saw 0 minutes this weekend. Our season stats in the conference, I think he means our season starts in the conference championship now. He says, we should be dominating these teams. None of them care to the level we do. It's embarrassing. We should never lose this conference. I'll say this, after watching Charlotte in person on Friday, they definitely care about beating ECU. So everybody wants to beat ECU. I disagree with this. Cameron says, what makes it worse? I don't think the AAC has gotten better all around. I just think we are that bad. We are a high school team right now with a lack of experience. I think the numbers show the AAC has gotten better. Right now the conference is 7th in RPI, which isn't great, but it's better than last year, and they're like percentage points barely behind the Sun Belt. So the league is better. I know Memphis and Rice aren't great, but Rice took 2 out of 3 from USF this week. Memphis took 2 out of 3 from FAU. What the hell is going on? But I don't know, Scott. Like, to me, the league is better. Am I off track there?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot more above average teams. I don't think UTSA you could make the argument that they're a good team, but I think there's a lot more kind of like middle ground, above average quality teams in the league than there has been in the past. And then obviously Memphis and Rice are both kind of just RPI anchors, but I think the FAUs, the UAB's kind of in between. I wouldn't necessarily lump them in. The ECU Charlottes, I think the middle of the conference is a lot more aligned than it has been in the past, and I think you'll see that in the parity in the conference standings this year in a way that you haven't really seen in the past.
All right, so I made the title of this podcast. We'll touch on this before we get into more comments. Down but not out. How does ECU rebound the rest of the season? And I mean, this is it sounds silly to talk about, but like from a realistic standpoint, ECU's 3 games out of first place. I would say if we were making these lines in Vegas, like UTSA, the far and away favorite at this point. As we mentioned, South Florida had lost 2 out of 3 to Rice, but they're still 8-4. Charlotte's 8-4. ECU's already lost that series, but they're still, 3 games out of first, 1 game, technically speaking, out of second. Tulane 7-5 is tied with ECU for 4th place. FAU 6-6. Then you have UAB 4-8. Wichita State 4-8. Memphis and Rice at 3-9. So it's not mathematically impossible. ECU could make a run over the last 15 conference games and make up 3 games, especially with UTSA at home. Am I crazy for even bringing this up, or if ECU wins the regular season, does that salvage any of this? I don't know. I mean, maybe this is the dumb conversation to have, Wags, coming off this week, but I still feel like it's still possible. If not, if it doesn't seem likely, maybe that's fair, but it is not impossible.
Yeah, I don't think it's a dumb conversation at all. I mean, when there's games on the schedule, then anything can happen. But I mean, we've seen that this team can get hot, and this level of hot that this team can reach is probably a lot lower than previous teams and probably a lot lower than some other teams. But as we've seen year after year, this conference can kind of the middle of the pack can always eat itself alive a little bit, and it's going to take a monumental turnaround from ECU and a lot of help from other teams. But, the way I look at it right now is typically this time of the year, we're having the conversation of, is ECU going to host? Is ECU more of a high 2 seed, or is ECU maybe a top 8 seed? Usually those are the 3 different areas that we're talking about. And you look at it, and I know all the RPI numbers and all that stuff goes into it, but you look at UTSA, who's in first, you're probably thinking they're not going to host, I don't think, and they're a 2 seed.
Definitely not that stadium.
Yeah. But, realistically, they're a 2 seed, but if they go 2-1 in a couple series, they can't go 2-1, or they go 1-2 one weekend, then they're right back as a 3 seed and maybe not even a highly regarded one. So you're within striking distance. And again, I think, we've talked about this before too, but I do think it's just my natural fixation on the fact that this conference always seems to kind of get in its own way. And it's always been ECU up at the top. And then, all the other teams, nobody can really step up and emerge to be that next team. And now UTSA seems like that team, but it kind of feels similar in the fact that a lot of the teams below them, USF lost this weekend. And a lot of the teams below them have kind of stepped on their own foot and gotten in their own way. So again, it'll take a lot of help and it'll take a lot of things going right. I don't think it's going to happen, but yeah, you have 5 weeks left. So that's 15 conference games. You're halfway there. So yeah, it's definitely possible.
Yeah, FAU, speaking of screwing up, went from like 40 in the RPI to 75 by losing that series at home to Memphis. So bad series loss for them. In many ways, kind of kills their at-large chances, although, they still have some interesting series remaining. But that was a bad series and an example of what you're talking about. What do you think, Scott? Like, are you holding out any hope the Pirates make a run at this regular season title?
Well, we do have the conference title streak on the line, and I think that it is important to remember that none of these other coaching staffs or players have the experience of winning this league. They've never been in that position. And, just looking at UTSA's schedule, they do have a stretch right at the end where they're on the road for 8 games. They play at USF and at ECU in conference. Those are going to be 2 tough series for them on the road. By then, it'll definitely be warm enough to where I think Clark LeClaire will be much more crowded and more raucous than it has been. It seems like every time we play at home, we get like a cold snap for some reason. So that's also frustrating. But, yeah, I mean, none of these teams have proven that they can sustain success for an entirety of the conference season. This is their year. Somebody's going to have to do it to keep us from winning the league, or we'll just have to completely not play well the rest of the year. But we can definitely win the league. It's just a matter of, does UTSA fall apart? Because I think they kind of have to for us to be able to get back into it. And then does Charlotte use the success of this weekend to propel themselves? Does FAU rebound off of a series loss? I don't know. I haven't seen either of those teams do it in the past to make me think that they're for sure going to do it this year. So as long as we're in contention for the conference title, I think it's like, when Tiger's 2 back on Sunday, it feels like he's even with you. And I think that's probably the way a lot of these programs view East Carolina being 3 games back in the conference standing. Is we're still there and we still are who we are as a program, even if this is not our best effort.
All right, Johnny Robertson says they absolutely need to finish the season by sweeping UTSA, projecting that into the final standings. The Pirates are better positioned than their Roadrunners. Obviously, that would be a big assumption to make if ECU could sweep UTSA, which has been the best team in and out of conference this year. I would say normally like UTSA coming to ECU means a good thing for ECU, but Pirates can't play in front of a crowd. Maybe by May they can.
Or there'll be no crowd,
Yeah, that's true too. ECU, just to give you guys a thought on this, obviously just wrapped up Florida Atlantic Charlotte. Now they go to UAB Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, get Tulane at home, and then at Wichita State. I would think you would need to go at minimum 7-2 in those 9 games to keep pace with UTSA. And then if you're within 3 games of them coming to your place, then you take your shot then. That's how I kind of envision it, if you want to have a shot at it. But we'll see. First, Pirates got to just show up and start playing some better baseball consistently. All right. Chuck says, as a result of Sean Jenkins' performance on Sunday, does he get his starter role back? I think you leave him in the current role. I mean, to me, he's even said today on the show, it kind of frees up his mind. What do y'all think? Scott, would you mess with the role?
No, I think he's shown that this year he's more suited to come in relief. I think it actually a lot of the teams in our league have pretty top heavy lineups. So if you bring him in, after the first 5 guys hit for any of the teams in our league, he kind of eases in a way that he can't do facing the top 3 of some of these teams that can actually really hit. So I like the D'Lo into Sean Jenkins. I like Jake Hunter one time through the lineup too. I think he's shown that he can be very effective on a Sunday the first time through. And I do kind of like the wily vet and Jake Hunter into the young gun and Sean Jenkins combo. I think that's pretty fun. So I would just keep running that out there for the time being.
What about you, Wax?
Yeah, I agree, but I do think it's he for this week at least, he just threw 88 pitches on Sunday, so we're not going to see him out of the bullpen tomorrow. We're not going to see him out of the bullpen on Thursday. I'd be surprised if we see him out of the bullpen on Friday. So I think it's one of those things where this week specifically, we're going to see Norby on Thursday, and then it's going to be TBA, and I would assume Pruitt probably goes on Friday. But I do think it's one of those things. If they have to go to Pruitt for some reason out of the bullpen on Tuesday or Thursday, then they would, and then they're just gonna go from it from there. So if it gets into a situation like that, I could see them just saying, go out and give us 3 innings, Sean, on Saturday in the series finale this week. So I could see them doing it for this week just because of the toughness of the schedule. A tough UNCW game, and then the Thursday, Saturday on the road. So I could see it just from that standpoint, but I agree. He's shown that he's comfortable coming out of the bullpen, and on your show today, he talked about it, and it's, I think a lot of times you don't see that with young pitchers. A lot of times they want the ball. They want to go out there, and it's not that he doesn't want the ball, but I think, he's acknowledged that he might be a little more comfortable in that role. So if it's working for him, you got to keep rolling. But it's also one of the things, back to the early conversation, you got to find guys who can pitch and give you length in the conference tournament. So if the staff views him as a potential, starter for the conference tournament, then I could also see them kind of using this past weekend's performance out of the bullpen as a way to kind of give it another shot.
Matt Linkner says our team is similar to our field. Usually one of the best in the country isn't good this year. Needs to go back to how it used to be.
It's a great comment.
Is it time to rip up all the turf and just replant the grass, guys?
It was time to do that the second they tore that crap up. It's stupid, it's ugly, and I hate everyone for it.
No half measures. If you're gonna turf it, just turf the whole thing. Like, yeah. I mean, and I hate that. Like, I don't want that either. But don't turf half of it. I mean, I get when you turf like not the foul lines, but like kind of the edges of the field where like the on deck circle and all that is, and the space behind the catcher where you typically would have like a logo. Turfing that makes a lot of sense just from a maintenance standpoint. But the turf baselines, it looks so bad. I don't know. It just feels like it wasn't well thought out. And I feel like there's a lot of things in ECU athletics at times that come off as they weren't well thought out. And that's frustrating.
Should we get into the whole Brian Bailey discussion?
Shout out BB. We love you.
You go for another hour. All right, Lane, Johnny Robertson rebuttal to his earlier comment. I like that rebuttal. Cliff is the only coach in the nation, says Johnny Robertson, to win either a regular season or conference tourney championship in each of the last 6 seasons. It is a very difficult task. No doubt. And, I mean, look, there are a lot of variables in play, and there's still time to make it 7. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. All right. Walk the Plank is asking me, did I see the song Dixon dropped? It's fire. I'm going to say that Dixon Williams did not drop that song, and I will not be listening to it for the time being. Although somebody sent me the link earlier today, and I was tempted to click on it. I have not clicked on it yet. Have you guys listened to that?
I don't even know what you're talking about, to be honest with you.
I think it's let's see. I've got it in our group chat with somebody else. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull it up. All right. It is called it is on SoundCloud. And gosh, what did I do with it? I guess I lost it. All right, it's on SoundCloud. I'll try to figure it out. That's great radio. All right, Johnny Robertson says some Saturday saw another opponent flip their bat and trash talk after drawing a walk. Is this a thing now? Thank you to Walker for not letting it go unchallenged. So I was at the Disturbed concert on Saturday, so I probably missed this. Wags, do you know what he's talking about? Did y'all see this?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember exactly what the situation was, but I remember he drew a walk and he kind of flipped his bat. I think he said something to Ethan Young. And typically you would think that Ethan Young would be the one to talk back, but it definitely seemed like it was Walker Barron that is the one that took exception. And I think both benches were warned, I believe, after that. So, but yeah, I mean, I agree with Johnny. I mean, Walker not letting it go unchallenged, that's one of those things that might seem so small in the moment. But when you look back at the end of the year, if this team does turn it around, I think something like that, your catcher, a guy that's on the field who's given everything to the team just about this year, someone, even if obviously it didn't escalate into anything, but just standing up for your own guys and yourself, it's so small, but that it's leadership. It's stuff that you need on a team, and I'm glad Walker Barron stepped up. So, man, there's always something, though, and I bet you we're going to see something else this week, and I wouldn't be surprised if on Tuesday we see another against UNCW in the series finale there. So, yeah, I love it with Tempers Flare, though, a little bit, and I think, like I said earlier, there's a line where I think you cross, and a lot of teams do cross it, but at the same time, it's a game. Have fun, play with emotion, and especially if you're a team like ECU, who's kind of been reeling, then who knows? Maybe that's something that can give you a spark.
I'm expecting fireworks, guys, in Birmingham. I mean, there's no greater baseball rivalry than East Carolina UAB. So gets the blood boiling. UNCW, I could see it though. The man. I'm getting distracted by these comments, but I was gonna say
Poteet, by the way.
That was
the guy that that did all the stuff.
Yeah, looks like 3-2 walk. Poteet. Both benches issued a warning. I love that it says that in stat broadcast. I've never seen that before. So yeah, that was the bottom of the sixth inning. Okay, that reminds me. Okay, so Walker doing that, guys, kind of showed me, and I know they had a team meeting. And look, they didn't win games after the team meeting, so like everybody is like, "Oh, great team meeting, would have failed." But like I've heard that the players, and I've heard this from players that like some older guys on the team have really started to make it clear that like what's going on is pretty unacceptable, and like they got to figure out how to get it fixed. And like this is coming from the players now, not the coaches. So I think some of these older players are. I don't want to say like introverts, but like just not as outspoken as some past leaders. So it's kind of taken maybe to get to this point to really get them to say enough is enough. And we saw some emotion this week, and hopefully Sunday's the start of a turn, Scott. But I'm hearing that the players are, some guys you would think, some upperclassmen, some older guys who aren't upperclassmen are starting to step up in that regard.
Yeah, somebody's got to, right? I mean, in years past, you've had guys like Burley and Agnos, both of them, really that were kind of vocal leaders that you could see the emotion off the field and on the field that those were going to be guys that were going to hold people accountable. And I saw somebody comment earlier, when are we going to start holding people accountable? And I think accountability is kind of a theme of this season. In years past, we've seen guys like JJC get pulled out of games early. And I've wondered why we haven't seen that, when you got guys out there that have made over a dozen errors this year and have been given every opportunity. And I do think at some point somebody has to say something and say, we're not going to play like this. We're not going to be this team. We're not going to get just shit talked by any and everybody because we're not as good as we have been in the past. And it feels like some of these teams have come in and disrespected us, and we've just taken it and just did that to it. I mean, you can't
Chest
do
pat for the podcast audience.
Forgot to shake your head.
Like, I mean, the East Carolina teams that I remember would not let somebody come in and punch them in the mouth and not respond. And I think that speaks to why we haven't played great with crowds. We've been in the moment, but we haven't been in the moment. Like, we haven't had the moment ourselves. We've been in somebody else's moment, and that's got to change. If this team wants to have any success, they got to want to be in the moment, and they got to make that moment their moment and not Logan Poteet's moment or Luke Nixon's moment or anybody else's moment. It's got to be East Carolina's moment.
You guys remember Joe Genord, USF?
Oh, God.
And
Yeah.
Seth
Gavin
Caddell
Williams.
kind of giving him the business? I want to see something like that.
He also always made it his moment because he got all this. So.
He had a grand slam opposite field off Gavin throwing 98. So,
Seth
like,
Caddell
off
met
the
him on
scoreboard. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, I think USF may have won or that series or something, but, like, you could tell ECU wasn't going to take it when they met again in the conference tournament. I can't remember how exactly that played out, but fun times. Walk the Plank says we should hire Jenny Kavnar as our play-by-play announcer, and Coach O would make this. Her and Coach O would make this team watchable in the broadcast. Isn't that the A's announcer?
That's what I assumed when I read it, but I don't know.
Do you actually think she's good? I mean, because I think that would make this team even more unwatchable. I mean,
Be
I'm just gonna
entertaining
call
at
it
the
like I
very
am.
least.
But I have
Something to
nothing
talk
against
about.
female announcers, but her calls of home runs and some of her calls are the most hilarious thing I've ever heard. So, all right. Anyways, we'll move on. There's which by the way, my brother, I went to him at the concert, and there's a social media account. I don't know if y'all ever follow it. The guy's name is Jacob Berger, and he like reenacts big sports calls, and it's like him on the headset. Have y'all seen this guy?
Yes.
He's hilarious. So like I've been watching all of Jenny Kavnar's like the ones where he's picking on her, and it just makes it hilarious. So
That's
check
awesome.
that out. All right. Anyways, back on track. We got a lot of comments from burners. They want me to play the song. ECU NPC says, "This is damn ECU. Put some respect on our name." Bruce Willis says, "Walker Barron responded to the jawing on Saturday with 5 RBIs on Sunday." That Sunday double, which by the way, like it feels like ECU has been BABIP to death, which means batting average on balls in play, like basically bullshit hits given up, and then like when they hit the ball hard, it's not finding holes. That was like the one where it really wasn't hit that hard, but it was against the shift, and I think it hit the infield dirt and somehow ended up as a bases clearing double. So like that just seemed to like flip the whole feeling. Yeah, you get a hit like that, it kind of allows everybody to breathe, and I thought we saw the Pirates just play really well after that. Josh 88 says the Reds haven't responded since 1990. Any thoughts there, Scott?
We just swept the Pirates, so second place right now. I don't know. I don't have any faith in them either. I can't wait. North Carolina needs a baseball team so I could free myself from the shackles that are the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, as soon as I tweeted that I was ready for MLB Raleigh to take over, the Mariners have not lost a game. They came back from 5-0, walked it off, and now we get Mariners Reds. Nobody else cares except me and Scott. But what are your thoughts on this? All right, what are your thoughts on the series, Scott? And then we'll get Wags' take.
I think it's gonna be some solid pitching matchups. I need to look at them again so I get them correct. I know it's Lodolo Castillo tomorrow, which should be fun. Luis Castillo coming back to Cincinnati. Then you got Bryce Miller, Nick Martinez. That is a Mariners win written all over it. Can't wait for Nick Martinez to be out of the rotation.
How is Nick Martinez still an MLB starter?
He should not be. That's how. We need a Petty to get up so that we can get rid of Martinez. And then Ryu Brady Singer.
That's a good
That'll be a heck of a game. I believe at noon on Thursday. Day game in Great American Ballpark, which may or may not be filling in with water as we speak. I don't know if you've seen the Ohio River flooding behind the stadium. It's like right up to the edge. So
that's exciting.
Should be some good pitching matchups, which means every game will end 8-6. But yeah, I feel like the Reds are getting Alexis Diaz back in the back end of the bullpen. So we've made it through this tough stretch with not having a closer, and Scott, it's only up from here.
Mariners and Reds coming off a sweep into the same series might be the first time ever that has occurred. Wags, what's your prediction for the series? Who gets it done, Mariners or Reds?
I don't trust either team.
That's completely fair.
But I think it's just a 3-game series, right?
Correct.
I think I trust the Mariners pitching a little more. I'm gonna go with the Mariners, but I think it's gonna be some tight games.
The kiss of death. What's going to happen is Nick Martinez and Bryce Miller are going to end up having a 2-1 game, and then the other games are going to be high scoring.
For sure.
I will wear a Mariners shirt next week if the Reds don't win the series.
All right. I will wear a red shirt if I can find one.
Just a plain red
I will wear a red shirt. Not a Reds shirt, a red shirt.
Put an S on.
Yeah.
If you show up to the podcast the day before an NC State game wearing red, I'm going to judge you very hard.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. Now it's really fun.
That's fine. I'm going to do it. All right. CJ Schaefer, speaking of our Major League Baseball team, says, I'm hearing Paul Skeens owns a certain someone's baseball team in this room. Yeah, that was a double whammy. I'm playing Wags in fantasy baseball this week. Paul Skeens just put me up in some pitching categories very early. But the Pittsburgh Pirates put it on the Nationals. So what happened?
Yeah, I think, first of all, Paul Skeens versus Brad Lord as a pitching matchup is not fair.
Is that former USF pitcher,
yes,
Brad Lord?
Brad Lord, who over the winters, this past winter, he worked at Home Depot. The winter before, he was a Publix employee. So, he's really well-rounded. But I don't like him starting a game against Paul Skeens, but it's just how the rotation shook out, and the Pirates had the last laugh. And the Pirates, just like our ECU Pirates most of the time, made 4 errors, including 2 from Paul Skeens on pickoffs. So Dylan Cruz sucks. The Paul Skeens-Dylan Cruz matchup did not go very well, as you would expect. But then, hey, the Nats are fun. They're doing exactly what I thought they would, which is give me no idea what's ever going to happen, because the Nats won back-to-back series against the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers, and then they came back and lost a series to the Marlins, and they're probably going to lose a series to the Pirates. So I have no idea what to expect every day, but that's the fun of it. The Nats are scrappy. James, what is it?
Some Brad Lord. What a fake name, Brad Lord. Brad Lord trivia. His final career start at South Florida came against another Pirates, the East Carolina Pirates, who he also struggled against. 3 2/3, 6 hits, 3 runs in the conference tournament. 10 days before that, he faced the Pirates in Tampa, and he took another L, 4 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs. So Brad Lord does not like seeing Pirates on the other side. We've got ECU Reds talk, or excuse me. I guess if we want to talk ECU Reds, we could do Ryan McChrystal. But we've got Reds, Mariners, and Nationals talk on the ECU podcast. Yeah, that's how bad it is, Lane. And Steven Igo's burner says, crazy, out of 300 million people, Steven found the one Reds fan. What an exclusive.
Crazy that you have your name as Steven Igo's burner and then misspelled his name in your comment. So,
what a dumbass. All right. This is – I'm going to steer clear of the burner section. If you got real questions, let me know. Guys, bold predictions last week.
Do we have to talk about those?
I had them written down. Hold on. Mine was wrong, Wags was wrong, and yours was wrong. So that's all you need to know.
Colby Wallace, I had 2 saves. He did not make a pitching appearance.
I had Davin Whitaker hitting a home run. Did not happen.
Did not happen.
I
He at least got in that bat, though.
Yeah, he got to start.
And Braden combining for 2 home runs or hitting 2 home runs each. And I don't think either one of them hit a home run. Yeah. Neither one hit a home run. So, good job.
Tough week for the boys. It's hard to hit on these bold predictions when the team doesn't win. I will say that. So, if at first you do not succeed, try again. We will try again. Let's talk about the week ahead first, though, guys. Pirates get UNCW, rubber game of the season midweek series, if you're into that sort of thing. 6 o'clock first pitch on Tuesday. And then the UAB Blazers, the rivalry that people in the American can't get enough of. Blazers hosting the Pirates. Can't wait to see what the rowdy crowd is like in Birmingham. They've been waiting for this one ever since the Pirates left Conference USA. The week ahead, I guess we'll start with predictions there. I'm going to go 4-0. Fuck it.
Wait, we're not doing bold predictions yet.
No, we're not. But
that's next.
That could be my bold prediction as well. Maybe I should double whammy. 4-0, boys. I feel it. What you got, Wags?
Well, I'm not going to go quite as bold as you, but I am going to go 3-1. No idea why. I'm going purely on gut feeling and not thinking about it because I have no idea what to think about this team, and I don't think they do either. But I think you beat UNCW, you win the series, you get some momentum going into the early weekend, and you take 2 out of 3 at UAB because it's a team that you should beat. And I'm just hoping that this team shows up like they did on Sunday, and Sunday can spark. I'm going to go 3-1, but I don't feel good about it.
So Scott got the correct prediction last week of 1-3. Such a negative Nancy. Especially go 1-3 with your with your double home run prediction for Braden and Braxton.
I thought we'd have some more offense. I was unfortunately wrong. But you know what? Slap the parental advisory on the podcast because fuck it, we're going 4-0.
What just happened?
You heard it here first, boys. Lane Smith also says 4-0. Scott and Steven say 4-0. Wags, you might as well just change it to 4-0 again.
No, someone's got to be the negative one, and if being 3-1 with this team is negative, then
Jeff Neal says 4-0. So when I get to upload the podcast, I get to choose a category, clean or explicit. I'll definitely be choosing explicit this time. Brian Wallace says 4-0 as well. So, man, the good vibes. And if the Pirates go 4-0, they will be – what would that put them on the season at that point? They would be 25-16, boys. And some big series ahead. So let's hope it happens because it would be fun. All right. Bold predictions. Who wants to go first?
I'm ready.
All right. You said that with a lot of conviction, so let's hear it.
All right. So to me, I think the biggest moment of this weekend, and not in a positive way at all, was on Saturday in the 6th inning. And I'm looking at the scorebook to make sure I got it right. But ECU started off with 2 singles and a walk. And you get to Jack Herring, who pinch hit for John Collins. Jack Herring came through with a 2-run double, put runners on second and third, put you down 3-2. And then after that, you strike out looking, you bunt, and you strike out looking. And to me, not coming through with a big hit in the moment like that, when you get the first big hit but you can't add on, has been what's haunted this team. This week, you're going to get that hit. ECU, I'm not predicting who it is or when it comes, but this week, ECU will hit a grand slam. I think that's bold.
I feel like a grand slam is definitely bold because it's just so rare. What Colby hit one early this year?
Mm-hmm.
Was there another as well? But I can't.
Too, right?
Yeah, the walk-off at UNCW. But scoring 4 runs in a game feels like it's a bold prediction for this team. So I feel like for a run on one swing is
a grand
give me
slam is
that.
a bold prediction for sure. I didn't know what direction you were going. At first, I thought you were going to say ECU gets a runner in scoring position hit to like take the lead, and I was like, how are we going to quantify this? But what do you got, Scott?
We did something this weekend that I'm going to make up a stat that we hadn't done all season. Don't know if this is true or not. But we played error-free baseball in Charlotte. I'm going to go that we continue that streak and do not make an error this week.
Also bold.
So, like, the whole week?
The whole week.
No. Okay. You're lagging out, so I couldn't.
Oh, okay.
Jeff Neal says Burris Grand Slam. All right. When you guys were doing all that, I was trying to figure out what direction to go here. Still don't know. And I am going to say that not only will the Pirates hit a grand slam this week, it will be by Walker Barron.
Wow.
You $1.
I just won up Wags.
Well, now if I get mine right, Igo's going to be more right than me, so I'm going to be pissed.
What are the odds that Walker Barron hits the
first inning grand slam again?
Yeah, that's right.
So there have been 3 this year.
Yeah. Jeff Neal says Braden Burris had a grand slam in the first inning. So, all right, if Walker comes up with the bases loaded, I'm going to be losing it this week. So, Jeff Neal says bold prediction, Colby will have 2 saves. That was my bold prediction last week. I still actually like that prediction because I feel like ECU is going to win some games this week. I was thinking about running it back, but then I was like, that's not very bold, so I'm not going to run it back. So I'm going to go even bolder.
Well, based on last week, you could go Colby Wallace 2 appearances because –
yeah, it's true.
I like it on a short week where some of your top guys in the bullpen just threw a lot. So I like that.
For sure. Bruce Willis says Norby throws a no-hitter. That would be epic.
Bruce Willis, stop commenting and driving. I saw you say that you did that.
Please do not die. You don't want the last thought of your life be one of us talking. That would be horrific. So yeah, you don't want to die while we're making our grand slam bold predictions. That would be horrific. All right. Okay, fellas. We'll go closing thoughts. We got a minute or 2 left. Any closing thoughts, Wags, on the week that was or the week ahead?
Yeah, I think you just gotta come out again and you gotta take things into your own hands. And you gotta come out on Tuesday and you gotta score early and you gotta keep adding on. Again, you can't have those situations where you get early guys on and you just don't add enough, and you come back and you lose by 1 or 2 at the end because you didn't come through with that one big swing. So, like I said earlier, it's a big week. I don't think you're going to see Braxton Trammell this week. So, some guys are going to get opportunities that they haven't been getting lately. So, step up, take advantage of it. And I know that this isn't how it should be, but I think a lot of this team should be coming out for the rest of the season and playing like they are trying to save their roster spot for next year. So that's the mindset I want to see. I want to see guys desperate. I want to see them coming out and playing like they have everything to give and they have to win this game. So just come out desperate. I think that's what they should do.
Scott, or first I'll say, Wags, do you have a thought on who will be batting 4th in the lineup, as Johnny asked, since Braxton's likely out?
I think just since the lineup on Sunday worked, you're going to see Burris in the leadoff spot still. Jack Herring, I think, is going to get some opportunities this week, probably in the 2-hole. I could see him clean up as well. But then I think you'll see Colby 3 and Dixon 4. I think the Dixon in the 4-hole has been okay. So I think at least to start the week, I think you're going to see the same lineup as you did on Sunday.
All right, closing thoughts, Scott, and feel free to weigh in on the cleanup discussion as well.
Just to make Wags happy, it's going to be Roger Vergara and Jack Herring combo in the 4-hole. But, like we said before, there's been a lot of moments this year that have been moments for other people. For this East Carolina team, I really want to see going forward when there's a moment to make it our moment and show who you can be. You got a lot to prove, so go prove it.
Go prove it. All right, Brady Thomas, final comment here says another walk-off tomorrow. Actually, another buzzer beater comment. Jeff Neal says, who starts Tuesday? That person will be Bradley Zayak. I almost predicted a Bradley Zayak win as my bold prediction, but I chose not to because I don't know what his limitations will be. All right, fellas, it is time to get out of here. For Jonathan Wagner, for Scott Lorbatcher, I am Stephen Igo. Hope you guys have a happy Easter. Enjoy the week. We will be back next Monday night. Again, it'll be Thursday through Saturday due to it being Easter weekend for the UAB series and then the UNCW game this Tuesday. We will see you next Monday night. Until then, have a good week.